Voice check 1 2. Voice check 1 2. Voice check 5 4 3 2 1 0. Right, run about a 20-second delay, but that's kind of about par for the course. I'll be with you guys in just a minute. Apostles, you may have noticed I've got the 3D printed stuff you sent me right here. We're going to be talking about that first. It literally just showed up yesterday, and I just unboxed it a few minutes ago. And gentlemen, everybody, welcome to Max's Models number 58. I can't believe we've done this many already. So, okay, all kinds of cool stuff to talk about today. Had a phone call with Jim Keeler. We're going to be talking, which relates to that Fisher Body Craftsman guild, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. Got some information on some of the Star Trek models. Got some information on all kinds of cool stuff, actually. There he is. Waiting for Ken to chime in. Let me just answer that. Put him on speaker. Ken!
It's me.
You're live on the interweb.
Yay!
Okay, first, I've got this real Rube Goldberg arrangement set up here. Ken, give me a voice check. See if everybody can hear you.
Checking, test.
Okay, guys, if you can hear him, give me a thumbs up. If not, I can move it. I can move the mic. You know what? I can just move this whole thing a little bit closer. I forgot to charge my phone, so you know what? I'm just going to unplug it, put the mic right by the mic. We'll do this old-fashioned 1970s style. And I'll turn the volume down now. You get feedback. Let's see. Yep, they're already saying hi to you, Ken.
Yeah, I see that. Hello, everybody.
Ken's going to wingman me from Fort Lauderdale. He's going to be keeping an eye on the comment stream for me. So, because one thing we're all here to have a good time. You guys talk about whatever you want to, as long as it's not anything that's going to cause a flame war. And, but I know a lot of times I'm chatting about something, people are asking questions that go right past me. So Ken's going to keep an eye out for me. And, anyway, so first thing I want to talk, what?
And don't be texting anything bad about me because I'm watching.
Yeah, he's very sensitive. So the first thing I want to talk about, if you guys look to your lower left corner, in fact, you know what, let me just expand this. These are 3D printed glue troopers from Apostolos, Apostoli, I hope I'm saying it right, in Greece. We had sent some pictures of them out earlier. He had put the file out there. I guess that's an SMV file. But he sent me some. They just arrived yesterday, but I didn't get around to open the box today. And one of them was, of course, this bust of Robin Olds, which, here, you know what? Like I said, I have a very rudimentary setup here, the slightest bump, and, you know, it's like Godzilla's in town. And because you knew at some point I'm going to mention Godzilla. So let's just get that out of the way now. Let me show you some pictures here that are a lot better than my little camera can show. Here we go. Oops, that was the wrong one. Hit the right button, get it back up there. There you go. A beautiful bust of Robin Olds. And then, of course, he's got the glue troopers, different scales. And now, of course, being 3D printed, so I may have to trim some of these things off of. And let's just like me after I had my hip replaced, you want to put him on crutches, which is a totally doable thing. So I thought we'd look at a couple of them. Now, what's really cool is, oops, okay, well, that demonstrates that. On the, I believe these are 110 scale or 135th scale? No, it's bigger than that. What is it, 124 scale? 124 scale one. You got a separate helmet and a separate glue tube. So you can just do other things. All right. You know my butterfingers.
Who's Roz? Somebody asked me if I was Roz. They said, if you're Fraser, am I Roz?
Oh, Roz was the girl that was his engineer. She was always in the booth. She took the calls.
I am not nearly that cute.
No, you are not. But you're on the air, Seattle. So, and we had, of course, 124 scale and 135th scale ones also. Wait, let's see. 132nd, 135th, and 124th. Okay, that's what they are. And, of course, you can use them for other than glue trooper stuff, but that's what they essentially are. And he's got all the little baggies of parts and everything that go with them. I didn't have time to get it all set up.
Sure that's a he?
Make it what you want it to be.
No. Are you sure it's a he?
Who?
That thing you just put the glue trooper thing in.
Huh?
That figure that you just put the glue tube into. You sure that's a he?
This one right here? This one?
No, well...
That's a dude.
You sure about that?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's a dude. Well, whatever, you know. A little Play-Doh, it can be anything. And a little modeling clay, or not, a little what do you call that? A little putty. You can change the shape. Hey, most of the female figures in my dioramas are male figures that I simply puttied, the changes to. And
yep.
I mean,
I'm thinking that's what they're looking like.
I'm
maybe it's the light you can't see it from your direction, but
I'm really not seeing it, but whatever.
Okay.
So
just knocking the helmet off there.
Well, there. Happy? Just read the comment stream, Ken. Anyway, so I want to thank Apostolos for, first off, taking the time to make those. And, of course, sending them to me, because I'm sure that was not cheap from Greece.
Somebody said that might have been a tube of lipstick.
This, no, this is 3D printed tube of glue. I mean, who puts a screw lid on lipstick?
And no, I don't work for Disney. I don't know.
Oh, God. That didn't take long, did it? You know, I was wondering if we were going to get through this live stream without that coming up. Would have been on the air here 6 minutes. All right. Well, actually, you know, modeling, Bill's talking about transgender modeling. You a lot of times you have to modify figures, and it's not that hard. There's nothing wrong with that at all. Like I say, all of my female characters were male characters that I modified. And it's, when you get right down to it, it's really not even that hard. A clump of hair. In fact, the most clay I ever put on the head of a model figure was about this size, and the most I used clay to make the hair, the putty, and the most that we ever did was not for a female character. It was for the David Hasselhoff character on my Knight Rider diorama. That boy had Farrah Fawcett hair. And, Anyway, so.
What's a wind-up merchant?
What? A wind-up merchant? Fluid.
Wind. W-I-N-D.
When.
Yeah.
Can you're a. I think it's wind up.
That's what it says.
Hey, Ricky. Well, Ricky's from the UK. They use phrases we don't understand. I'm not sure what that means.
Explains a lot.
Oh, the Wolfman, yeah. He sent me a bunch of stuff. In fact, I was just looking at some of it yesterday. A lot of vacuform and resin stuff. He does beautiful resin models. Mostly Royal Air Force aircraft, but 5 minutes of the show, we've already digressed. Yeah.
Your fingers are transgender.
God. That didn't take long, guys. Okay, anyway.
I just messed that all up, didn't I?
Thanks, Ken. Well, you know what? Hey, what's the motto of this place? Make it what you want it to be. I don't care. We don't judge.
That could go so many ways right now.
Yeah, anyway, back to models. First off, I want to thank.
Yeah, let's go back to models.
I want to thank Apostolos for all this. I'm looking for. He did send me a letter here, and I'm sure some of you guys. And it's time for glasses change because I've got to put on my reading glasses because I'm getting old. All right. Greetings from Greece, Max. In this box, you'll find some samples of my 3D printing adventure. I printed a batch of glue troopers with the models posted online in 135, 132nd. They still have the supports from the printing process because I'm hoping the supports will protect them during shipping. Well, they did. It doesn't like any of them got broken, Apostolos, so good job. I want you to experience the joys of cleanup and prep of the resin figures. Use a fine surface primer to hide some of the layer lines and reveal the defects left by the support removal. I was too lazy to do it. It would have been a lot of work. Choose my excuse. There are 2 figures in 124 scale running Glue Trooper, which is not posted online because I wasn't sure how it would print. Well, I think the best looking ones. Well, the bigger they get, usually the better they look. There are 3 figures of the initial print. Those have the supports removed. All the fingers are intact. Finally, a work in progress. I got a 1/72nd scale Hobby 2000 F4C with decals to the aircraft of Brigadier General Robin Olds. I'll be making the in-flight, so a base is required. When I started researching for the particular aircraft, I came across a Wikipedia page for him. I had a vague idea of his achievements, but reading upon his life and career was fascinating. Did you know he participated in the Thompson Trophy in 1946? No, I don't think I knew that. He was an ace in both Vietnam and World War II. So I thought I'd combine what I learned from making the Glue Troopers with the F4. I came up with a bust of Robin Olds to decorate the base. As I've already said, it's a work in progress. I think it looks great. Still, needs a lot of tweaking. For example, the neck seems too long, the flight seat too flat. Yeah, I'm not complaining. But There's a lot more detail in the digital model than what the physical model has, so I sent it to you first because I thought you might enjoy it. I do very much, thank you. And second, to hear your suggestions and the Gloo Troopers of what might be improved if I can implement it. That's all from this side of the pond. Thank you for the Gloo Troopers for creating an environment where we can talk about our hobby without interference from whatever craziness occurs. See you on the interwebs, Apostolos Julius. Thank you, Apostolos. Appreciate that very much.
Okay, your chat group's still stuck on the previous subject.
Oh, Lord. Well, I'm moving past it. We have models to talk about and all kinds of cool stuff. And, hey, if you want to take a little GI figure and turn him into Klinger, go for it. We might make that a group build. But I did not just say that. Now, but I wanted to give a big shout out to Apostles for that. Now, a couple of things we're going to talk about today before we wind up sailing off on all the tangents you guys would like to go off on is one, and I brought my P80 out for this, one of my great embarrassments. In fact,
it has a nice finish on it.
Well, it looks that way on a crummy little camera. Here, let me show you the pictures up close where you can get a better look, and you will see this model is a train wreck. I want to thank Steve's Model Mania for suggesting this topic. He said something we should talk about is kits you brought back from the dead. This one didn't come back from the dead. I built it this way to begin with. But to make a real quick excuse, I did a pretty decent job on my Hasegawa F84, and I had this in my stash, and I'd wanted a P80, so I wanted to get a companion piece on the shelf with it. And for some reason, it was just a rush build. I had a couple of days off, and for some reason, I wanted to get it done before I went to work. Now, obviously, the bright red are decals, and the dark red on the nose is paint. So I had just set the Tarbus up when I built this, and I didn't have a lot of great lighting. I'm going to use that as my excuse. This is the Monogram 1/48 scale kit, and there's nothing wrong with this kit. I put a little putting seam lines, but I didn't have all my tools and everything. So real rough sanding over the seam lines, which is just, it would have been better just leave the crack showing. And I just wanted to get it on the stick. But the worst part about this, the thing it's always been an eyesore to me. It's always irked me, and I've been meaning to get around to it. Is the nose. The nose being the wrong color. It was the only red I had. It was an old Tester's dark red. Didn't even come close to matching the rest of the paint. I'd been better off just leave the bloody stripe off the airplane, and then I could have left the nose silver. But even as soon as I was done with it, I was displeased with it, but I figured it's going to be a dark corner of the shelf. It goes to the F-84 because I was putting my Korean War shelf together. And this is going to be my rebuild project for taking one, quote-unquote, back from the dead. Not the worst, but certainly and even the decal's already starting to yellow on it because this thing's, 12 years old or something. But I'm going to order a sheet of the proper decals, strip it down. I'm not going to redo the interior because it came out okay. And one thing I like about this kit is the bubble canopy comes off the frame, so you can just remove it. That really saves to clean it up. But I'm going to completely redo this. I try and put probably an aluminum scheme on it. And one of the things I found is aluminum paint. Some of the rattle can aluminum paints are really quite good. They make a very nice finish, but I'll put black and white areas underneath it, or light gray areas with a primer underneath it to try, across the panel lines, try and give some counter shade. But it seems like the aluminum, a lot of the times, even though I did this with that FT5 that I built, it just doesn't, the counter shading just doesn't really show that well. You pretty much are compelled to tape it off and use another color. What are you laughing at?
You can just chalk up the battle damage.
Getting the fuel cap logo in the wrong place, that's just a drunk crew chief. I mean, how did I even miss that?
I was wondering about that.
Man, well, you know what this model is. This model is you got to remember, this is, I did this long before I had this channel going. I didn't think anybody was ever going to see it. It was just something to put over the F-84. But this is a combination of two things: not really good lighting and impatience. Everything you see here. Now, by the way, that 3D tool that was sent to me recently, that I just talked about the other day, that three-sided X-Acto knife. I gave that a quick and dirty test here, right here, and it took that spine down in no time. So a little buffing out, and that's going to be okay. Now this is clear coated, so I'm gonna have to strip all these decals. But that nose is just an embarrassment. Oh, good God, it is just an embarrassment.
Well, you can always put a firecracker up the tailpipe.
Then I just had to buy another P80 and start from scratch. This one's already built. I can, of course, this one comes with the flaps partially deployed. Good Lord, I got one flap sticking down and one not. Yeah, this is going to take some work. But Steve, if you're out there, this is the one that I'm going to rehabilitate. But the idea of this model wasn't to show my shame, because I do that every day when I make a video. But it's to ask you guys about kits you brought back from the dead. You know, a kit you built as a kid that you decided to redo, or you just decided it wasn't good enough, or whatever. And we've all got them. Now, by the way, this P80 kit, the gun bays, the canopy does slide, but the pilot gets in the way, so at least you can position it either way. But the gun bays are separate. They have to be glued into place. And I don't mind telling you, although Monogram makes good kits, it's a little hard to get those things flushed out just right.
Somebody just had an interesting idea.
What's that?
You put it on a wire, so it can, it slides down the wire, and then you put a firecracker in the tailpipe and light it, and then let it slide down the wire and record it in high speed.
I did that with so many models with my Super 8 camera when I was a kid. I mean, you couldn't walk through our side yard without getting styrene shards in your feet.
Why am I not surprised?
Which reminds me, although this is not a shameful build, I'm very happy with the way this looks. This is the Polara that I made, and you'll notice it's got mag wheels on one side, and it's got the dog dish wheels caps on the other, because I didn't have four of the same thing. I didn't want to make it the hot rod. I was making it like my grandma's car. But I was thinking, I still left it as a two-door, and that's the wrong color. It needs to be that champagne color. And I thought about the possibility of stripping this and redoing it and go ahead and putty up the door and move the B pillar back or forward and go ahead and etching in, make it a four-door. With all that trouble to build the Hemi on it. Oh, the top does come off. I'm sorry. I forgot I left it with the, because you guys look, I don't know if you can be able to see that, but I got all the distributor cables and everything in there. This is the first time I really detailed a car engine. I mean, it's not like show quality, but for me, it's a lot. Let me see if this camera will show it better. Nope. This thing cannot focus up close. Well, it's a little camera for, but anyway, but I got, I went ahead and painted the spark plugs and everything. And, oh yeah, you can see it fairly well there.
2 air cleaners?
Yeah, it's this is a Hemi. This is actually a race car version, a dragster that I had converted to like my grandmother's car. Hang on, where did I drop that hood? Whoops! And I just stepped on it.
Plastic shards.
Well, yeah. Luckily, I stepped on the inside. But by the way, I had talked about this car before. There's pictures on my phone I meant to download of my grandmother's. Now, I went and saw the old 60s Dodge trim package deals. Turns out, I thought I'd said I thought my grandmother's had a slant 6. I was like, I remember working on it. It was a V6 or V8. Turns out she had a 318 in it. But I don't think that was that the wedge engine? Anyway, the point is that she had apparently the deluxe model. I guess it was the 440. Because if you'll notice on the trim, you just have this sort of backward C that is the trim package. Well, the upgraded one had 2 little spires that stuck in there, like little forks, made it like a reverse trident. And I got a picture of my grandmother's car, and she had that. And hers, of course, was the 4-door. And so apparently she had the more deluxe version. And if I remember right, my brother was telling me that, that my uncle had bought it, and he had something he didn't like about it. Golf clubs didn't fit back or something, so he gave it to her, and he went and got something else. He got his Falcon. Something like that. But he was there and saw all the drama. And this is, back when, you buy a new car with about, it was, $800, $1,000, $1,200, something like that. And he made good money. So he'd buy a new car every year or something like that. But anyway, also,
That's back when cars were less than $1 a pound.
yeah. Also, this model has the 2 taillights on each side. If I'm not mistaken, the version she had the 3-pane taillight with one of them being red. So, and I believe it was inspired by the Impalas. But anyway, so that I might get another Polaro. This was a gift to me, and I want to thank the Gloo Trooper that sent that to me. I might modify that one at some point. But the P80 is the one I want to quote unquote redo, because it just looks like it's embarrassment on the shelf. I mean, look at that nose. It looks like it's drunk. The 318, it's called a Poly. That's it. Thanks, Steve. Because I think the wedge engine was one option, but I don't think my uncle would have got anything bigger than a 318. But I don't know, he might have. I mean, he had a Falcon. That was we laugh at him today before it was turned into the Mustang. It was actually a fairly peppy car if you got the right package in it. But the Dodge line for that year is the Polar 880. Okay, 880. I think it was 440 or 880. Couldn't remember. Should be able to remember that because I'm building a Convair 880. And God, memory, Oh, puddle of white, thin white glue prevents. So that's interesting. Okay, now one of the things I want to talk to you guys about. Let me just check. Apostles, you might consider making like these in different positions and make like a chessboard. Make checkmate. I attack your king. Those will make some pretty cool chess pieces. Okay, all right. Okay, this. The Fisher Body Craftsman's Guild. You guys may remember a while back I did a Zoom interview with Jim Keeler, who is a national award-winning model builder. In fact, Keeler, because of his model building skills, was hired by Revell at the age of 18, and he basically became their R&D department. And okay, Max, quit playing with your toys. He worked there for several years until the situation changed, but he was actually involved with this. Now, the reason I want to talk about this is these are all model cars, all right? Every one of them made by someone like you or me, a teenager. And some of you guys may be familiar with this already. If I had heard of it, I'd forgotten about it. In 1930, the Fisher Body, and this is during the height of the Depression, by the way, decided that they could capitalize on the fertile minds of the young. And what they did was they held these nationwide contests, and all these young model builders, and I think the only requirement you had to be a teenager, would make models to their specifications, and they would judge them, and they would pay rewards and prizes and stuff. But what they were actually doing, this was a pre-interview, sort of what you might call a crowdsourcing early pre-interview. Because what they were doing was they're actually hunting talent. And the thing that the kids had to make was this Napoleonic era stagecoach. Not with the horses or anything, just the coach. But if you got involved with it, then they would send you the Craftsman's Guild plans, and you had to make it out of scratch. These were complete scratch builds. And in 1961, they announced their first winner. Now, mind you, think 1961, the tools that were available to a kid, a teenager. And here's one of the winners. I should have gotten some pictures of this earlier, but here's one of the winning coaches. Going the wrong way. There it is. By the way, that's Chuck Jordan in the cowboy hat. GM's big guy that TD worked for a while. But anyway, that is the winning coach from 1961, I believe. And, anyway, I didn't realize Keeler was involved. He had well, he's actually involved in a couple of ways, and I'll talk about it first. He made a submission. Now, it went from 1930 to 1968, so it went for 38 years. But the 1930s when they introduced it, and 31 was when the first winners were announced, and so Keeler got involved in the late 50s, early 60s with it. And by then, they'd gotten away from having you make the coach, and they had you submitted your ideas for cars. And all of these model cars, and many others that are in the book, they're all one-off handmades made out of stop block wood by teenagers who were entering the thing. And Jim was saying that the people who won, there were the 5 national winners. They got like a $5,000 scholarship to go to college on, and they had jobs with Fisher Body or GM coming right out of college. But every state had a winner who got, you ready for this? In the 1961, they got $500 in gold. They paid in gold, which I still kind of trying to wrap my head around. So in the 30s, these kids would all make these very complex Napoleonic coaches from scratch, just based on the plans. Now, I can't draw a perfect circle, never mind cutting a wheel. And he said cutting the wheels was the hardest part, probably. Now, when he got involved many years later, they'd gotten away from doing the coach thing and had you make a car, but you made a car of your own design. And of course, this gave their styling guys all kinds of ideas. And some of the cars in there are Batmobile cool. Well, Keeler, what happened was he was entering, and knowing the way Jim builds cars, I got a suspicion he might have won. But he was talking about doing it. He started off with a block of pine, and he didn't have any electric tools, so it was all hand cut, and keeping everything symmetrical in the works. And he got most of the way through it, and he had used a paintbrush to put on many layers of the paint that he was using. He was talking about the paint he used. He used carnauba wax to buff it all out when he was done and everything, and it was really looking good. And then he got hired. I forget why he said the first one didn't get submitted. So he started working on another one. But before he could submit it to go to college to get the scholarship, I'm sure he probably would have won, he got hired over at Revell. And once he was working at Revell, of course it died. But he was in the guild. They sent him and he was like a newspaper. And he got it from an art teacher. He had the same art teacher in school for high school for 3 or 4 years. And that gave him, the man was very supportive. And that gave him a lot of, it was his art teacher that had the flyer that said, hey, join this Craftsman's Guild, and got him interested in it. So he got a lot of good guidance on that. But he was talking about how he carved, and you can make a coupe or a roadster, and he made the coupe because that way you didn't have all of the visible detail that you'd have in a topless roadster. But unfortunately, no pictures survived because when, long story short, a family member tossed all of his stuff when he wasn't living in the house. So, modeling history gone to waste. But he was involved with that. And the guys, the people that got involved in it, the talent level was extreme. And so, Ken, are you checking the... we're having a little conversation. You can keep on talking. Okay. I just wanted to make sure you were... I know how enraptured people can get listening to my stories, so I don't want to take them away from their duties. I am a portable work stoppage. If there's people working in an office and I'll walk up with a cup of coffee, it's like, so, guys, guess, like, and I'm off of one of my incredibly wonderful and scintillating stories. So, hey, John. Oh, so John's got some actual 60s magazines that talk about the Fisher competition. I think this was a stroke of absolute genius. Today we would call it crowdsourcing. But the idea that, and this was not a cheap campaign. This was real. These were real scholarships and real money they paid out to a lot of winners. They had to print the paper, distribute it. Well, okay, now, but Keeler's not done with the whole Fisher Craftsman's Guild yet. So, many years later, he now has a family. He's traveling around, and he just told me the story today. He winds up in a place up, I want to say it was Nevada City or anyway. He wound up meeting some folks. He was looking for a guy named Ed White, a famous car builder.
Can I interrupt for a second?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, darn, just went off the top. Somebody was saying that they have a whole bunch of magazines for the Fisher competition.
Okay.
Sports.
I believe it. Yeah. Ken went to Magic Kingdom for a.
I'm still trying to figure that out.
Maybe he meant double. I'm not. Sometimes no Dremels. It was all hand chiseled. Historic crowdsourcing was called a contest. That's true. John's right. Historic crowds. Let's have a contest. Oh, by the way, real quick before I forget, going on a tangent here. My Instagram account doesn't work. My wife only started the Instagram account so no one else could get it and use the Max's Models name. I never checked it. Well, at one point I decided, let me see what's on it. Well, I was going for my phone and it wanted some information from me, and I never give accurate information because remember, when you're getting a free service, you're not the customer, you're the product. So I always fudge my date and my birth date or something because identity theft issues. Sure enough, I didn't check the date and I put like 2013. They go, oh, you're not 13 years old. You have to give us all this extra information before we can let you know. I was like, oh, crap. But they said, otherwise, we will lock your account. I'm like, perfect. The account is locked. So no one can steal the name, but I don't have to use it. So anyway, but just wanted to let you know, don't bother sending anything to my Instagram account. Even I can't get into it. Don't care. Just wanted to protect someone from getting the name and doing some tomfoolery in my name. So anyway,
somebody wants to know when I'm getting paid for this.
Well, I usually buy you dinner when we're in town, so
Oh, I do this just so I can be with you.
That really don't think that meant don't. That's one of those things that probably sounded better up here than when it actually hit the atmosphere. But oh well, words are like bullets. Once they're gone, you can't call them back. And the interweb forgets nothing. So, anywho, Jim meets this guy who's running the factory and gets a tour of the factory. And he tells him I'm a model builder, so gets a tour of the factory. Well, when he goes in, the guy's got apparently the people at the factory, because they do a lot of aluminum work. He got dozens of different kinds of lathes and metalworking tools. And they do a lot of aluminum work. Well, one of the things that these guys who work for him, even though they're technically making parts, they really are artisans. And one of the things they'll do every Christmas is they will all make an aluminum car out of block steel, and they trade them with each other.
I knew that was going to generate some comments. Yeah, it didn't quite come out right.
Just let me know when there's a comment I need to know about. Anyway, that you didn't make. Anyway, so back to my story. We have fun here. Sorry.
Yeah. Go ahead. Please continue. Yeah.
He looks at all these beautiful cars that this guy has on display, model cars. Many of them, handmade, cut out of aluminum, real artisanship. And in the corner, he sees something the guy eventually gets to, and he recognizes it because when you were making the stagecoach, the Napoleonic stagecoach for the Fisher Craftsman build back in the 30s and the 40s, they gave very specific instructions, not only how the model had to look, and I mean, we're talking getting right down to the folded interior cloth on the inside and the upholstery and the little gold tassels. I mean, it was like the way Monica makes her dolls. Well, anyway, the entire thing, it was the work that these guys did was just unbelievable, all hand done. Well, they also gave instructions on how to make the box that it had to be shipped in. So that was kind of part of the thing. And the box had been put together by, designed by engineers, so you knew the thing would get there unbroken. So he sees one of those boxes, and he knew right away what it was. So when the guy finally got over to it, he goes, oh, my father won the first prize, not the national scholarship, but he won the first prize for the state of Nevada. So apparently they have, the overall winners, like 5 of them who got their $5,000 scholarships and jobs when they were done. But each state had a winner that got the $500 in gold back in 31. So this guy's father had been the winner for, I think it was the state of Nevada for that year. The very first year they awarded him. And in there was just this magnificent Napoleonic era stagecoach. But through wear and tear and mishandling and traveling, it had gotten damaged. The guy knew that Jim was a master modeler, so he asked if he could fix it. So he agreed, and he wasn't able to take it with him right then because he was traveling with the family. But long story short, the guy got it to him. It took him I think he said it was a 2-year project, and he got it all repainted and everything and sent it back. Well, when he sent it back to the gentleman who ran the factory, because eventually he got to go visit them, and I think he stays in contact with them to this day. And I'm assuming this was like in the 80s. And he goes, they had this, like sort of a shrine to the man who'd started the factory, the father who'd built the thing. And he goes, that was the centerpiece. And these things are big, truly magnificent. Now, and then we start talking about that stagecoach that I built for Donovan. And these stagecoaches, you don't appreciate how complicated they are till you build something like that Mark's model of one, because it's so detailed. I mean, you could build a real stagecoach off the instruction sheet. And
did a lot of research on that too to make sure that the reins were correct.
Yeah, and that was right, because the instructions leave a little bit to be desired. They're kind of adequate. I didn't appreciate how complicated the reins on a stagecoach are. You always see the guy with like holding his fingers like this. He's got like 4 straps in each hand and 2 under these fingers and 2 under these fingers. It turns out that it's like flying a drone. These little, and you got to remember, a horse may weigh 800 pounds, but it can feel a fly land on its back. So it does, just these little hand movements, and the horses get the message. And you realize how it's all hooked up, how complex it is, and you realize these old boys in the Old West, they had their own kind of complicated life. But anyway, it was originally a Mark's mold, and now it's Lindbergh, and the estimation is if it's over. That if you were to, they have the mold, it's still in good shape, I think. But if you were to cut that mold today, it costs about $1.2 million because there are hundreds of parts to that thing. And I got to give the guys at Mark's credit. The thing was tricky because I had problem. They didn't have the instruction sheet, and apparently some parts were missing, which was unfortunately was not uncommon that Lindbergh or Mark's would forget to run an extra set of the the collars that the horses wear, and was it pommels anyway. The big horse collar. So I had to wind up cutting some out of leather, and they don't quite look right if you look close, but they got the job done. I actually tried to cast some copies, but my castings were too rubbery, but I went ahead and used them. They looked the part. Paint it black and put it on the horse. But anyway, sadly, as you guys know, my buddy Donovan passed, and his family was going to sell it to a collector, but the guy fell through, so it looks like I'm going to have to go back to Tallahassee and pick it up soon, because the family didn't have any place to put it, and I certainly, after all that work, I don't want to see it end up in the trash. And frankly, the sentimental value made it for a close friend. Kind of regret I never got that sailing ship to him, that Jolly Roger. It's weird. I built it, and I was like, I'll take it to him this weekend. I got next weekend, and next weekend never came. So eat dessert first. Life is uncertain. But anyway, I just thought that was really the whole thing with in the 60s, Jim's involved in this thing, but he doesn't make a submission because he winds up getting hired at Revell. And I mean, he's 18 years old and he gets hired at Revell, and he basically is R&D. And some people just find their place in life early. And then 20 odd years later, here he is fixing one of the very first stagecoaches that ever, or Napoleonic coaches that ever entered that contest. And I'm like, wow, you can't, if you'd written that as a Hollywood script, people would have said it was, nah, that's too hokey. No one will believe that. A horse can tell if you know how to ride. That is absolutely true. So, anyway, there's one car in here. God, I mean, come on. You realize that a teenager made these out of scratch with nothing but plans, right down to the upholstery and the tassels. That is impressive. And it was brilliant of Fisher Body and GM to get involved in that. And some of the names in here, Exner, Harley Earl, Exner Sr., Exner Jr., Harley Earl, Chuck Jordan. I mean, car guys will recognize those names right away. But some of the cars, are kind of like normal period pieces. This one. This is my favorite. It almost reminds me of the Batmobile. This one right here. I just think that is an awesome looking car. And these kids had mad skills too. And the coaches average 1,000 hours in labor. The cars between 250 and 500 hours. And by the way, these all started off with a block of wood. And there's a pretty wild stuff in there. I mean,
hey Max,
yeah.
Hobby Lobby's having their 40% off sale on models again.
Oh, okay. Yeah, they do that every couple of weeks. That could have been Robin's car if he, after Batman retired.
Maybe I'll go get that 112 scale Trans Am.
Do that.
I used to have.
Heck yeah.
79.
You should do that, Ken. We could do a build video on it.
I was thinking about automating, put servos and a motor in it.
People do that with much smaller cars all the time. I got one Gloo trooper that lights all of his cars. Yeah, he did that Mustang and he even had a dome light in it. And come on, Ken, with modern electronics, rigging a car, if once you learn how to work with LEDs, it's not as hard as it used to be.
Oh yeah, absolutely. One of those pictures in that book that you were showing, was that one of those? Was that a Star Duster?
No, these were all one-offs that were done by the kids. None of them were kit cars or anything.
Really familiar.
Well, just by the law of so many guys wanting to go with aerodynamic shapes and everything, you're going to get. I mean, a couple remind me of Daryl Starbird's Predictive, but they're not. There are a lot of different, but at a glance, they can see somewhere. By the way, there was one more little side tidbit to the Keeler story at Revell I thought I would touch on, because we're talking about, and I happen to have this kit. Now, I was going to send this to Andy's hobby headquarters when he was going to do his kit model museum, because this is an original motorized Revell Ford Ranchero. But unfortunately, and I know I think it's the station wagon's a super rare one. They only made like 1 year. But anyway, but he wasn't able to put it together. It just got too expensive. But
by the way, Harley Earl was the person who began the concept of automotive design, according to Fast Sports.
Yeah. John knows what he's talking about. Cars are his thing. And he was also instrumental in the Craftsman's Guild and a lot of other stuff. I think Harley Earl's the one who wound up using the prototype Sabre that I love so much as his personal driver, and that car still exists in the hands of a very loving collector. That was an awesome car. So anyway, Jim had been working at Revell for several years, and like they said, he was R&D. He had a fellow that he worked with. He told me the name, and of course I forgot it. Might be able to salvage these decals. It actually got decal white walls there. But unfortunately, another guy came in and took his place. They didn't get along, and it led to Jim's departure. But the reason I brought this car in was, this is the electric motor that comes with it. And it probably still works despite its age. I should test it. But apparently the gentleman that he was working for, his job for Revell, he went to Japan and he was a purchasing agent. He would buy up Revell was starting to get into electronics a lot in cars, like slot cars and stuff. And he did a lot of the sourcing, so things like this motor. But when he and Jim had to work together, it was just didn't work out. So he moved on to other things, decided it was time to go back to college. And so I just thought it was kind of an interesting little, you know how in the movies they'll relate how one guy was in this movie, and they'll kind of connect all these movies together through a single actor or something like that. Or, well, The Great Styrene River, I just found it interesting that I get this book. I'm fascinated by this guild. I think it was just a brilliant idea. Then I find somebody who not only was building models to compete, but actually wound up rebuilding one of the original ones. And then he winds up leaving Revell because the guy has to deal with who purchases the electronics that's in the box that I have. Now that's really tying things together about as loosely as you can, but I thought that was just interesting. And
Fast Sports said that Harley Earl demanded that every GM dream car be drivable. So you actually had to make the thing work.
Well, yeah, it's a car. If you don't make it drivable, kind of defeats the purpose.
Well, hey, I'm just reading what Fast Sports says.
Well,
Yell at him.
no, I'm not. Yeah, I'm just going. I mean, that does that. I would think that would be a condition. But what do I know? I'm sure there are some. I'm sure he had to deal with some of the engineers coming up with stuff that was never gonna fly. And
I remember seeing this one. I guess you call it a dream car. It was a prototype or whatever you call it. Oh man, many years ago, back when I was still a teenager, I guess.
wow, that long ago.
Yeah, back when dinosaurs still roamed the earth. But
Well, the ones with feathers.
what's that?
The ones with feathers, the evolved dinosaurs.
Anyway, I remember seeing this one car. It did not have a steering wheel. Instead, it had a lever on in a console between you that you moved back and forth, and that steered the car.
Yeah. I actually just saw a video, one of the old videos yesterday about that. Who was talking about that? It was Gene Winfield. Winfield, the car maker, was talking about he had made one like that as a concept car for somebody, and he said, unfortunately, it turned out to be way too touchy.
Yeah, I could see that.
Well, by the way, this is right when I think I've told everything about the Star Trek models there is to tell, something else pops up. Quick recap. If you've ever built Star Trek models, Enterprise or the shuttlecraft or the Klingon battlecruiser, okay, we all know from being on this channel, I've talked about it several times, that AMT wanted to build the Enterprise. They went to Paramount, or I guess it would have been Desilu back then, said, we want to build this model for the show. They said, if you'll build the space, the shuttlecraft, interior set and exterior prop, then you can have the rights to build the model of the ship. They contracted famous Hollywood car designer Gene Winfield. He built it. Unfortunately, it ran behind schedule, which is why it didn't show up in the first season. But they also, of course, after the show went off the air, that's when they started making the other models. Well, with the exception of the Klingon battlecruiser, which was on the shelf about a month before its pilot airing in I think the third season. Anyway, I knew that Matt Jeffries had been contracted, that AMT wanted another. The whole way the Klingon battlecruiser came into existence was AMT was selling the heck out of the Enterprises, and they were like, we need another model, because they knew that after a couple of years, everybody that wanted one was going to have one. So they said, what do you got? And they go, well, with these characters called the Klingons, but we weren't really planning to put their ship in there because we'd have to build a studio model. AMT says, we'll foot the bill for the studio model if you give us the rights. And yeah, sure, okay. I didn't realize that although Matt Jeffries designed it, they sent the order to Gene Winfield to make it. And I just saw this video yesterday with him going through his book of all the cars he made, and there's the Klingon battlecruiser. And he goes, oh yeah, I made this roughly little over 2 foot model for him on a contract, and that was the original Klingon battlecruiser. Well, that got sent to AMT to be pantographed 2-to-1 down to cut the mold, and then it went back to Hollywood to be used in the studio. And I think I'd read someplace that they built 2 of them, one for the mold and one for the studio, or it could have been one model. And that thing wound up on Gene Roddenberry's desk for a long time. So the Klingon battlecruiser kits that many of us have built, the original one, contracted by AMT for, at that point it would have been Paramount, designed by Matt Jeffries, original model cut and built by Gene Winfield, became the pattern for the mold, and then appeared on the TV show. Or they made 2 of them, and one became the pattern, and eventually ended up on Gene Roddenberry's desk. But I thought that was a pretty cool kit model story. But I didn't realize that car maker Gene Winfield was also making miniature models. But there you go.
Somebody confirmed, yeah, there were 2 master Klingon models made.
That's what I thought. And I'm pretty sure one of them went straight to the studio for shooting and the other one went to AMT. Although, if I'm not mistaken, the studio did get the second one back. And I think that's the one that probably ended up on Roddenberry's desk, but I'm only guessing. He also had the 3-foot Enterprise. And there's a whole mystery behind that. It's still missing to this day. And somebody thought they saw a photograph of it a few years ago that circled the internet and caused a buzz in sci-fi model world. And that was the, they were dealing with a model maker to make one of the like bigger models for one of the TV shows or movies. And he was photographing his work, and one of the pictures wound up on the internet. In the background, there was a model of the original series Enterprise. And, it was sitting next to some kind of office equipment, and somebody said, wait a minute, that's not an AMT kit. It's too big. And he actually went and got the dimensions of whatever this piece of office equipment was and extrapolated that model was 3 feet. And they're like, oh my crap, I think we found the original 3-foot model. But they weren't able to track it down. And when the people who were doing the work were asked about it, and they were like, we don't know what you're talking about. But we have the photograph. No, you don't. And,
got a question for you.
Yeah.
Since AMT was so successful doing that, did they do similar things for other sci-fi shows?
No, MPC did most of it, which is why they have Star Wars. Now, AMT did get a license, and so did Monogram. This gets weird. I mean, not weird. It gets complicated. You will notice that Monogram made like the Kazon ship and the Voyager from Voyager. Apparently the licensing issue, because you have to remember the movies belong to one studio and then the television shows belong to another studio. And I forget it was Fox and Paramount or who it was that had each one. And it got really complicated legally. Okay, let's see if I can keep this straight. Monogram got a license for the Voyager stuff. MPC actually had a license for some of the Star Trek as well as the Star Wars. Original series was AMT, but Lindbergh was able to do it off the AMT light, and not Lindbergh, Aurora was able to do it because they did the whole thing on the Mr. Spock stuff and the figures, and because AMT and MPC, neither one of them have been very big in foreign sales. You know, they stay mostly in the U.S. Aurora, on the other hand, Aurora Canada and Aurora UK, so they were already spread all over the globe, and so was Revell. Monogram, but it got into what country you could sell what in, which franchise they could sell from, when the licenses expired. One of the reasons the movie, was it 64 or 65, there was when I was a kid, I thought it was, it's the greatest movie ever made, and I look at it now, and I'm like, oh my God, it's so hokey. But Toho made 2 King Kong movies. They made King Kong versus Godzilla, 63 or 64. But then they made King Kong Escapes, which was the way he fights Mecha Kong. Well, the only reason they cranked that movie out was their King Kong license was going to expire in a year. And of course, I'm getting this off the internet, so take it for what it's worth. But their license is going to expire in a year. Like, well, look, this is still a popular character. Let's crank out a movie. And since we're a model channel, just remember to use lots of really, really hokey looking models in that movie. God. When I was a kid, I thought they were great, but now I look back and I'm like, oh my God. I was like 6 or 7 years old when I saw it. But that gets back to licensing, and licensing can be farmed out. So, but generally speaking, no, just to get back to your question, AMT, I don't think really got into other licensed properties like that. They really started focusing just on, because they were primarily a model car company. And some of the stuff that they did, I'm trying to remember, I think they started using some other people's molds for stuff to expand their product line without having to cut molds. I'd have to go back and watch my own video because it becomes a blur after a while. Some of these molds have been traded around so many times. I mean, they've had more users than a taxi cab. Didn't the Spock Star Trek model come out after the series ended? Yes, it did. What's that?
I was just going to say that Fast Sports said that AMT did a lot of the car models for the big 3.
Yeah, that was actually how they got started. There was AMT, PMC, NPC was started later by George Todt. He originally worked at AMT. And their first year they made it on aluminum because it stands for aluminum model toy. And there were a couple other, Johan, and a couple others that were their primary business. Because you have to remember, when these promos started coming out in the 30s and 40s, kit model building wasn't like it is now. Most models were still wood. There weren't that many plastic models, and most kits were either multimedia with some plastic parts like cowlings. Plastic was just really starting to take off in the 50s. And I mean, really getting in a big way. There were some in the 40s, but that was mostly still wood. But a lot of them had been making the promotion. SMT was the other one I'm thinking of, or SMP. And when they started making these things for the car companies, they realized, hey, he goes, come in, test drive the car. Here's this model car for your kid to go play with. And the early ones weren't really that detailed, but as time went by, they started getting pretty sophisticated. And then people started realizing, hey, these things had value. And one of the things I think it was AMT did was they actually, I think in Detroit, went to one of the department stores with a batch of their cars, said, hey, stick these in the window. And they sold. But the thing is the dealerships noticed an uptick in the number of people walking through the door. Because when they saw the car, the promo cars, was an old saying, sell the little one, sell the big one, something like that. It's like NASCAR, win on Sunday, buy on Monday. And they realized these promo cars really did affect. Humans have a natural love of life in miniature. Not really sure why. Maybe it makes us feel like gods. But whatever the reason, virtually everybody... Model trains. People love creating their own world, having life in miniature. And the promos were really, really... It's hard to oversell just how important they were. And don't forget, the car companies were usually paying to have the molds cut. They had to give the engineering drawings to the model maker so they could make the molds well in advance. There was a lead time on these. So there was a lot of security involved. There are documented cases of car model companies or model companies sending in spies with cameras and using telephoto lenses to try and sneak photographs of cars, out in the test yard, wherever they could, it was like they had like GMC, or GM and Ford had to run like, the skunk works. And I'm thinking, I don't know why you do that. I think you'd want people out there, making as many as but the other guys will steal our ideas. And corporate espionage, it's a real thing. Now, Ken, Steve's Model Mania just pointed out something. AMT did license a lot of the movie cars. You look at a lot of the movie car kits for AMT, and those were big sellers. What they made them, Revell did some of that too, and Revell did something kind of cool for a model truck that I've talked about before. When Carter was president, they went and bought this real big, rednecked up pickup truck and gave it to his brother Billy, so they could make, in return, they got to make the model of Billy Carter's redneck pickup truck. And I'm from that area. They're up in Plains, Georgia. They're not that far. I'm down near Tallahassee, Florida. They're not that far apart. And Billy's reputation, whatever you heard, probably true. Including the whole peeing in the planted pot and everything. That's become a legend. But it helped sell model trucks. In fact, I think it might have been Royal Glazer that personally handed the keys over to him.
That sports kind of brought up an interesting point. It's could you say that it's kind of like built into our natural behavior to model the outside world? I mean, you think back to like the early dolls that kids would make.
Yes, in a word, yes. Cave paintings, painting and modeling are sort of distant cousins. They're both expressions of the real world in miniature. Okay.
Right.
And one of the first things humanity apparently learned to do was keep a record. Now, there are a lot of reasons that humans model, and he was talking about young, and we're hardwired to do it. Life in miniature, I don't understand what goes on inside our brains that makes us do it, but it's there. And there are a lot of ways to look at modeling. There's a creative aspect. Humans are naturally creative. I was just having this chat with Keeler earlier today. You know, when I look at a mold for a styrene model, or I look at one of these Napoleon wagons that some kid built from scratch parts off of nothing but plans, I am, or you look at the inside of a computer, or an unskinned airframe, or the beautiful mechanics inside a car, and I am just awestruck at the creative abilities and drives of the human race. The absolute grandeur. I mean, even Shakespeare talked about it. You know, humanity. You know, how like, you know, in the manner in which he moves and walks, how like a god. So, in some way, humans are capable of just this transcendent creation. And then you flip on the news feed and see what's going on in the Ukraine, or watch a history documentary about World War II, and you are appalled by the incredible barbarism that we're capable of as well. And the book that's one of the hardest things to read is Ordinary Men, which is about the Germans that wound up doing a lot of the horrible things in the camps and everything, and the Einsatzgruppen and stuff, and how these perfectly normal people like you or me devolved into this. And it's enough to make you weep. And so humans are we can be quite extreme, you know, just unbelievable creativity and just horrific destruction. And the people who do both aren't that much different than you or I. So I know it sounds like I'm going on a tangent, but I'm not. I kind of went there to go here. I believe that model building is a part of that creative exercise, but a lot of us like to blow our models up too. It's sort of the safe local version of the you know, not nearly as extreme. I mean, but think about it. One of the favorite things for people to model is still militaria, myself included. There's just a lot of intriguing stuff.
Well, fast sports also brings up another interesting point too, as an extension of modeling would be like looking at birds and thinking, wow, I would like to fly, and try and build a machine to be able to do that.
It's funny. The first time I made that connection, it was in 7th or 8th grade at Florida High School, and a girl had a book called Bionics. And of course, this is when shows like The $6 Million Man were popular. And I went, oh, is that a book on how to make Steve Austin? You know, so I asked her, I could look at it, and I flipped through it. And what Bionics is simply the mechanical imitation of biology. And it showed how mechanical wings failed, so we made wings that don't flap. But it is still an imitation. We cannot mechanically reproduce what biology does. And I'll give you an example. A lot of people tried making aircraft with flapping wings. And the first aircraft, instead of 4 ailerons, they had wing warping. You know, one wing went this way, one wing that way. And you literally twisted the wing, which is the way a bird works. But if you ever watch a bird land, you'll see the feathers spread out. Well, in aircraft, we have flaps and slats that are imitating that. So bionics is a real thing. The U.S. Navy said, and I think they were trying to pattern a submarine propulsion system off the yellowfin tuna, which apparently is the fastest, or at least an extremely fast fish.
Tunas are the sports car of the water world.
Yeah. Well, anyway, and they made a scale, and they had, you know, engineers making this tail that mimicked what a tuna. They couldn't do it. They could not make a reliable mechanical model that could do what the yellowfin tuna does without flying apart or wearing out too quick. And they had trouble just getting it to mimic it because the thing moves so fast. So bionics, that's still very much a real thing. And our imitation of what nature does has led us to a great many things. But some things are not imitations. The car is not the imitation of any animal. I don't know of any animal that has wheels. So
it was an extension of the wagon.
Yeah, but that's still that the wagon was not an extension of an animal, as fast as I can tell.
No, but it was a derivative. Okay, only one person could ride a horse, but if you put a chariot behind it, you could put 2 or more people in it.
Yeah. Okay. By the way, I'm putting the email up here. I'm getting some folks requesting I put there. There's the email to send the any submissions. But Ken, that I'm of course, this is my opinion. I don't think that a wagon or a car, I think that is uniquely human. If we had built wagons with legs, we'd have been copying like the AT-ATs in Star Wars. They're clearly mimicking an elephant. And I got to be honest, a vehicle like that could have some advantages, but unless you happen to have an X-wing.
That one's a little different.
By the way, I had mentioned, I don't know if you guys know, there was a company in Japan made some, I think it was 1/12 scale of Dean Jeffries' Manta Ray. They only made like 175 of them, and they were $2,500 a piece new. And anyway, Keeler was the one who ran roughshod over getting all the measurements and dimensions and drawings and everything for him, and they wouldn't even let him have one. Like, well, that's cheap. But the reason I say that is just noticing Steve was talking about all 007 cars out there. Man, what was it? Scalextrics made that 007 slot car series. I mean, I only wonder what one of those would be worth today. But you see, it's just like a kit model like this. Part of me wants to build it, and part of me wants to keep it intact because there aren't that many of these original ones left. And you feel like you're building history. I wonder who did this artwork. There's a name on here that I can't make out. Oh, well, anyway. That's good artwork because not only the vehicle, but also the background. And it makes you want to go out and want to drive one of these things. Head out to the desert. But
somebody's got Billy Carter beer cans with the truck.
Oh, yeah. Well, I have to get some 124 scale beer bottles and beer cans for my Canadian build. But
somebody's saying don't build it. Are they referring to that kit?
I would imagine. It's definitely at the back. By the way, this is one of the old style kits. This isn't. This is before Totif's side slide injection method was popular. If you'll notice, it's still, there's a tear in the bag here, but this is the kind that has the separate side panels. You have, it's not a one-piece body, and these things are aggravating to build. I'll tell you that right now. They're easy to break. So, yeah, part of me is inclined not to build it just because it's not something I'm ever going to be able to replace. I have so many other kits in line before this, though. It's not a huge threat.
Fast Sports is bringing up an interesting point.
What's that?
Cars are based on he's saying it's based on the psychology of an animal. It respires, transpires, and moves.
Well, I'm just speaking mechanically. There's no animal with wheels. So I mean, yeah. I'm saying I don't see the car as in an imitation of anything in nature. I mean, a ship really isn't.
Well, if you replace the arms and legs with wheels,
then it's not a car. I don't know. To quote that Larry David commercial, I'm not seeing it. But anyway, we could debate that one all day long. Now, what do you guys? That was really all I had for my stuff to talk about tonight. So, we'll now hand it over to the court to decide what they would like to talk about. I have never blown up a model or set one off or too much. Well, Paul, you do really nice work. A lot of us blow them up to hide our mistakes in a blaze of glory. But firecrackers blow them up too fast. You really need a camera that can overcrank. And I recommend you put little those little iron filings in there. They make all the nice sparks when they go. And If you could master the slow exploding car kit, you would sell that. You know, you kids would. I used to send kits down the lines with models, you know, and firecrackers and stuff, and they just go pop and they're gone. I'm kind of like, oh man, that happened too fast. But I did manage to do something. I know I can do the kit bash because I did actually manage to destroy a perfectly good model out of the box. It was when I did that when we did that Godzilla versus the Wehrmacht thing, and I actually melted down a perfectly good monogram Mark IV Panzer and shoved smoke bombs in it and everything so that I could, show its detritus. I felt so guilty. I bought another one that I'm going to build up real nice. Trey's just built one. I watched his video on it. He did a real nice job on. Yeah, Trey's, that was you did the Mark IV, right?
Somebody said I'm going to try and build all the kits I destroyed.
Yeah, there's actually there's a little of that in there. The Scale Electric 007 were just tracks and cars. Gilbert was 6. Oh, okay.
Oh, somebody's asking about Godzilla. You said you had to talk about.
Didn't you say you had something about Godzilla to talk about at the beginning? No, I just said I always make sure I mention him during these things. At some point, his name's going to come up. Although I do really think that Godzilla is what happened to the Moscow. You know, he was just down there hunting, and along came this fat, juicy, Russian cruiser. That's what happened. You know, nobody knew that he was in that part of the world. God, you realize that's the biggest warship that's been sunk since the Falklands War when they sank the General Belgrano, and those two are the biggest ships that have been sunk pretty much in a military action, pretty much since World War II almost, or at least Korea.
Yeah, World War II.
Remember that the 4GT is eligible for the Canadian bill that is made by the Multimatic here in Ontario. Okay, that's close enough. Oh, I've seen Periscope Films and Pathé and those others. Yeah, I frequently go to them. Godzilla and the Easter Bunnies was horrid. That was actually sent to me, and my nephew saw it. He goes, "Make a stop motion film," and I'm kind of like, I didn't make that. Somebody just sent it to me. I was just forwarding it and using it.
Is there a modeling convention at Cape Canaveral? Is that what people were talking about?
Goodyear was shopping for Russian caviar. Yeah, I think there's always one going on somewhere. And Godzilla's breath smells like borscht.
Borscht?
That's Russian, what is it? Beet soup, I think.
Yeah. I think I know what it is. And, I know it. Borscht? Who would know?
The Moskva was slightly larger than the Belgrano. Well, that makes the Moskva about the biggest ship sunk in combat. I'm going to say since World War II. I'm not sure about that, but they're okay. Trace, could you say there's is that there a modeling convention this week and what and where? And the date and IPMS, I'm not going to get up for that. I usually don't get to conventions that are beyond driving distance because they're on the weekends. But there is the Deezerland. Oh, you know what? Hey, Steve, I'm going to put up the Deezerland. I totally brain fart in here.
Hey, you're famous in Ohio.
Yeah, they see me in every post office they go to. Only it's not a wanted poster. It's a see and avoid.
Something about it in Daytona? Dayton.
Oh, Dayton, Ohio. Okay. Yeah, I won't be able to make that.
Yeah, they were, according to Chris, they were talking about you.
In Dayton, Ohio?
In Dayton, Ohio.
Oh, God.
Imagine that.
As long as no one swore out a warrant, I'm not complaining. Okay.
Yep, Cape Canaveral, the Ramada Inn.
Oh, there's one at the Cape? This week? Wait. This weekend or next weekend? I can drive that far. I'm supposed to be a judge at Desertland, so here it is. Okay.
Trex ZX 10R says it's going to be at Deezerland too.
Good, 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 good. Guys, if you see me, come up and say hi, please. I've had that happen a couple of times. It makes me feel like a star. I knew you'd get a chuckle out of that one.
Yep, state in Ohio.
Okay, here's the Desertland, and I understand it's Desertland, I think. Here's the flyer on that, and hope to see a bunch of you guys there.
Yeah, I was planning on being there too.
The only problem I have being a judge is it means, you got to be mean to people. You got to I'm sorry, but you did not make standards. But you got to do what you got to do, Call of Duty and all that good stuff. But feel a little awkward criticizing somebody's model when they've done 100 times better than I can. But I'm like, well, those who can do, those who can't judge. But hey, Ken, yeah, you built the Tarantula, didn't you? I just realized it's on the Desertland.
Actually, my brother did that.
Oh, okay.
He kind of lost interest in it, and I thought it was a really cool looking car, so I played with it a whole lot.
Yeah,
I was probably in 6th grade or something like that when that thing came out.
I am trying not to make a. I didn't know it was that old comment, but.
Garfield says you're giving out autographs. Wow.
Sent the info on the Space Coast contest. Let me run and grab that real quick.
Bring your headshots, somebody said. Fast Sports says bring your headshots so you can autograph them.
Yeah. I got some from like 30 years ago when I was young and beautiful.
When was that?
Oh, hold on. I got an email here from Tommy Anderson. Tommy runs a podcast that I've been invited to. We had to postpone it because the other guy actually who makes models in Hollywood actually got a job. So let's see. Just read this real quick. Yeah, Genie's 94. Yeah, he's still going though. Tommy, I'm assuming it's okay to read this, but he knows Gene, and Keeler met Gene a few times. He also met some of the other guys. You orbit in those circles, you get to know them. Let's see. As I was up and coming in the film and TV industry, I was a photographer for the Hollywood Star Cars, studio cars, and would do the photos, still photos behind the scenes. I was also the photographer for Barry McGuire and his Crazy Car on Velocity channel, and I worked closely with his daughter Nicole, who sadly passed away from COVID in 2020. That's terrible. However, I was friends with George Barris and did a lot of pictures for him. I was one of the few invited to his memorial service at Forest Lawn. I was also a photographer for the West Coast Customs Car Show, so if you want any pictures of special cars, I might have them, Tom. Well, I appreciate that, Tom. And I look forward to doing our podcast. Boy, this channel has really just opened up so many opportunities for me. I can't thank you guys enough. Let's see.
Oh, there's a thought.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, $10 for a picture with you.
Please. 20. No. No. The day I charge someone for my photograph, feel free to smack me across the chops one time. Trust me, folks have been more than generous.
The photo without you is 25.
I love it. Tro, did you email me the? Did you say you were emailing a flyer? It's just not here yet. David's already submitted a rescue model. Okay, let me grab this picture real quick. Here's a model that copy image. Sorry, I got to go through paste, crop. We were talking earlier about save as Livestream 58, and just type in some gibberish so it has a name. Save. Now let me show you guys a model of a Canadian F5 that someone salvaged. And Image. Okay. Browse. Live stream. Maxis models. Live streams. 58. Oh, there it is. Okay. And there we go. And that is a Model F5 that a Gloo Trooper rescued from the bin and redid.
Do you still have that picture of your headshot you did for when you were...
When I was an Octa? Yeah, we got one up on the shelf. I'll tell you what, if you guys want something funny, I'll run grab a picture of it when we take our break here in a minute. Oh, wow, it's already 8:20?
Copies of it.
Again, that photo was taken in like 1991 or something like that. It is literally 30 years old. I was adorable.
Hey, people are willing to take them. What are you complaining about?
I give them away. Here, something for you to throw darts at.
Or they could shrink it down and make a tiny little face and put it in one of their cars.
Max the bobblehead. I already am a bobblehead. Let me check something. Build.
I didn't know Matchbox made kits. The Matchbox, like the little metal cars.
I got it, Trey. Oh yeah, no, the company, yeah, Matchbox models were made for a long time. They were famous for their relatively deep, like panel lines and stuff. People used to call them troughs. The de Havilland Twin Otter that I made, the Golden Knights markings, that's a Matchbox kit.
Same company?
I think it was all Lesney, but Steve, you would know that is the Matchbox. Okay, I did the video on them. You would think I would remember that. And I think it was, but part of me wants to say no, and part of me wants to say yes. So, Steve, you work for Lesney. I'm sure you would know if Matchbox kit models were related to the cars or not. Yeah, no pressure. Let's see. Okay. Go here.
3D HO scale Max's models figures.
Okay. Okay, guys, here's the flyer on the Space Coast one.
Carnivorous panel lines. I lost a putty knife in one.
It fell into the abyss, Ma. It fell into the abyss. A nice job on that F5.
Lesney?
What?
Lesney?
Lesney owned AMT, which owned Matchbox from 1991. That's another thing, Ken. And one thing I do remember from doing the video is these companies had a tendency to change hands. So Lesney might buy it, start it, but then someone come along AMT and buy it or something like that. It really, these corporate histories get so confusing sometimes. I'm trying to do one right now on Panda of New Zealand and not Panda of China, a completely different company. And Paul's been helping me, send me a lot of information, pictures. He actually has a few of them. Very rare kits to find because the company was only around for a few years. But what they did was they primarily, I think they may have actually cut their own molds. I forget. But the point is that they basically, they just boxed them down in New Zealand, sold them locally, and they only did it for a couple of years. I guess they decided it was part of a bigger toy company, and they got out of it. And I imagine a lot of Kiwi kids built those things. It was their first model, and now they can't. If you're like want to do a nostalgia build, they're just not out there. Handful of collectors have them, and my guess is they're not letting go of them. And I was trying to get information if it hadn't been for Paul sending me a bunch of information that he's been able to collect, I wouldn't have anything on them, and I may not even know about them. Takara, of course, part of Tomy, but you see models sold just as Takara, like these 1 to 100 scale kits from the Area 88 that I talked about the other day. And Port Canaveral. I wonder if I can make it down there. I know I'm off those days, I'm pretty sure. At least some of them. I have to give that a consideration.
2-hour drive for you?
About 2 for me, about 2 for you also, I think.
A little bit, about 2.5.
Yeah, maybe we would get up there and bump into, there's always cool stuff at these things. I mean, to be honest, I love looking at the work that the guys do there because it is fan-frickin-tastic. But
Yeah, that sounds like it'd be fun.
it makes me feel only mildly insecure. But what I really get a kick out of are the vendors. You find, oh my God, I built that when I was it's just the nostalgia. Just you can smell it in the air. And
do you remember the Matchbox cars?
oh God, yeah, I had those things. That was their bread and butter. That was Leslie's bread and butter for years. And Dinky Toys and Corgi and all these others. God, they made those things with the millions. They all had to be painted. Incredible operations.
Yeah, I had a bunch of them when I was a kid too. We even got one of those blue plastic Matchbox carrying cases to put them in. We had some.
Oh, did you have the wheel? You know, they had one of those on one of these was Ant-Man movies or something where he had the Matchbox, the round tire-shaped Matchbox car carrier, and they pull them out and grow them up full scale.
No, I didn't have that one. It was just like almost kind of like a briefcase. It was. I remember it was blue.
I remember that too. Yeah. You know, kids today, including the guys, they like to paint their nails funny colors and stuff. It's just the thing that young kids do. And I'm like, hey, kids, I did that back in the 60s. Of course, I was trying to paint a car and wound up going, across my thumb with the paintbrush. But trust me, I had all kinds of colors on my nails, my fingers, my knuckles. Just the other day, my wife thought I'd cut myself because it was red paint that I'd gotten on my neck or hand or something. No, it was on my finger. It was a big splotch. And what'd you do? Or maybe it was my sister, but she was like, I just remember saying, oh, no, it's not my blood. it's just paint.
I remember as a kid, remember when they came out with the Hot Wheels with the motors in them, the electric batteries? And you had this kind of thing that looked kind of like a fuel pump, and you would plug it into the car, with like a little miniature audio jack. And you'd push on the top, and the batteries would charge the car up, and the cars would run around for a few minutes.
Okay, that's when you're like, this is ringing some kind of a bell. Of course,
I remember that. I thought that was so cool that you could charge these things up and they would run by themselves.
Yeah, it's one way to get kids interested in science.
I think that was the Hot Wheels. No, yeah, Hot Wheels.
Just make my screen look a little nicer here. Let's see, and put Gluey where you can see him.
Sizzlers. Yes, they were called
Sizzlers. Yeah, now that you said that, I do remember. I didn't have some of these toys, but I remember the commercials for a lot of them.
I had so much fun with those things.
Yeah, you got to admit, if any of you guys seen the TV series out there, The Toys That Made Us? And they did one on Mattel, and they also, Elvira, Mistress of the Dark, Sandra Peterson did hosted a documentary on Aurora, and they picked her because of their relationship with all the monster the creature features and everything. But we really did. I think we really did grow up in a generation of the coolest toys. We're very very blessed in that regard.
We did have some really interesting toys. I remember. I remember I told you about the submarine that I got and I fixed.
Mm-hmm.
I also had a battleship or a cruiser or something like that, and it had this enormous, for scale, missile launcher on the back of the thing. And if it was scale, it would have sunk the whole, the real thing.
No, I'm just laughing at some of the comments. I was into girls by that time, different kind of sizzlers.
Yes, those are definitely.
Boys will be boys.
A lot bigger sizzlers. Anyway, I remember that ship, and I played with that thing so much. I kept thinking maybe if I could seal it up, I could, put it in the water and it would go. But it was never designed for that.
Well, I think it's only natural as we get older, we become more and more interested in the things of our past. Getting toys we couldn't have as a kid, or building models that we screwed up, or whatever. it provides us with a connection, because we were talking about humans. It's in our psychology to model. It's just what we do. I mean, right down to, you think about it, some of the earliest things ever made by human hands were hand carved, animals and things that people saw, and you tend to model what you see. And of course, as technology's advanced, we have more things to make models of. Some of them with insane amounts of accuracy. And as impressed as I am with new molds and all the incredible things they can do, I'm still flabbergasted by the dark magic, the old mold makers, because you look at some of these incredibly detailed models that came out in the 60s. One of my mind usually goes to that Marx, later Lindbergh stagecoach. Somebody did this on a lathe, or, with just the black magic skill. I had the chance to talk to Jim Salvino of Salvino's Models, and he made the sculptures and everything, the patterns and stuff, and it's like, it's just a dark art, but it's one of the things that's like painting. Some people have the talent for it, not just the patience, but the skill. And I look at the work the box artists do, and you realize the paint work, the actual artwork, is part of the equation. But these guys have to keep, of course, the art director at whatever company they're working for happy. So, but they've got to come up with, what angle do one look like, and of course the master of that, Jack Linwood. But you've got all these other guys, Amendola and Kashadi and Bob Steele and all these others who just had this gift for creating the image in their head, I'm sure, before it got on the board. And in the case of Linwood, he was famous for doing them so quickly. And he always said, I'm not an artist, I'm an illustrator. And but you look at the work like Mike Machat did, especially on those gigantic murals and everything. It's really, really, it's a gift. And I mean, they worked hard. Tom Daniel and Brad Leisure and all these other guys who, went to the art school or whatever, they had good tutelage, but they also had the raw skill, and they put forth the effort. You talk to Tom Daniel about that video. There's an interview with him out there. He talks about going to art school. I mean, these art schools were tough. They were like boot camps. I mean, you had to draw things over and over and over again until you got them perfect, and then you still had to keep doing it so that you just trained yourself. You learned to rotate the pencil as you made a line drawing so that it kept an even width, and it just, wow. And they make things that last forever. And then you've got the guys that are cutting the steel or making the patterns, cutting the sculptures. I'm happy when I don't get a thumb-shaped glue stain on the side of an airplane. And but you know what? I consider myself fortunate. My gift is flying airplanes. Takeoffs equal landings, and I'm getting paid for it. So I consider myself extremely fortunate. More than happy to be a hobbyist. And that's why I put stress on myself at work to do my job. Of course, don't forget, I have a vested interest in the safety of the aircraft.
Especially since you'll be the first one on the scene.
Yeah, the old joke is, if a pilot screws up, he's the first one to pay for it. But this is my hobby, and people go, well, it's a passion. Well, it is, but it's fun. And in the day this stops being fun, and that's my motto, when it stops being fun, it'll stop being done. And that's why I don't get too critical, with the viewers' builds, as long as the photograph's in focus, and it's not something I don't think the world should see, we do have one or two people with imaginations out there. But
you brought up something interesting earlier about your toys shaping your life and your interests.
Yeah.
Somebody brought one up, and it just sparked a memory in me. Remember the Johnny 7 toys?
Yeah.
All these different kinds of toys, but it was always Johnny 7 this and Johnny 7
Well, yeah, it became a marketing brand, yeah.
Yeah. And I remember this one toy that fascinated me. I never had one, but I would watch the commercials, and basically it was something kind of like a blimp or a Zeppelin that was supposedly radio controlled, but it didn't look like. I think it was just on the end of a wire or something. But it would actually float around, and you could, fly it from one room to another. And I just thought, oh, wow, that's just really
I
cool.
have a faint recollection of something like this. Also was the air hogs, or not, the little racers had the mountain and the wires, and you would race the two airplanes on the end of the wires. They had motors and batteries that plugged into them. And
Yeah, I remember those.
yeah, we had some of those. And oh god, we really did grow up with the coolest toys. But all I was gonna say was, what?
I remember this one toy. I talked about it a little bit before. It was kind of like a model of an M1 Garand, about 2/3, half the size, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And it had these little plastic bullets that you could put like a cap on the end of it, and you could actually shoot it.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about a toy that would be major legal battles or legal.
You couldn't make them today. I had Major Matt Mason. I still have a couple of them in the Tarbis in a Sarge store. And John's talking about Topper. It's a Topper toy. Sometimes I go back and look at the old commercials and I'm like, oh my God, you know, the militarist nature. I mean, well, I never thought of America as a martial country, but, you know, Mark's a copter. Oh, yeah. This is so much cool stuff. Hey, when I was in Boy Scouts, they had a wooden soapbox derby type car that was supposed to be CO2 cartridge powered. You had to be able to pop and send it flying down. It's like, I remember my brother made one. It was just different times. Recoilless rifle and the GI Joe Jeep.
There was another toy that I had a lot of fun with too. Basically, it was a propeller inside of a shroud, kind of like a ducted fan, and you had this little handheld joystick that you could use to point the fan around, and then the fan. You're
supposed to fly. You're supposed to land a balloon on it.
Like a little
balloon
landing gear on the bottom of it, and because of Bernoulli's effect, you could actually point the propeller at it, and you could pick it up, and you could fly it around. I had so much fun with that thing.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah. But what I was getting at earlier was just that. Since I like this to be a fun channel where people can come just have a good time, not worry. That's why I don't hold contests. The viewers' builds are just that. You don't have to make, you can put a model together, not paint it, and just send me a picture of it naked. If you go, this is my submission, I'll show it, because the whole idea behind the viewers' builds is to simply show what people are doing. Let you show off what you're up to. It's not a competition. It's not like, oh, this isn't good enough. I'm like, sure it is. If you're building it, you know. I mean, if you want to finger paint a B-25, okay. But this is the kind of place that I want people to make sure they understand that they're not being judged. They're just here to have a good time. And look, I go out and watch Plasmo and Tom's modeling, the stop motion. He's a very pleasant kind of insane. I mean, I can't make my models look that good. Never mind doing a stop motion film at the same time. And the HPI guy and all these others, but I do like to watch their techniques because I use some of them sometimes. And one thing you learn about model builders, for almost with rare exception, they're more than happy, even proud to brag about how they got something to look good. And it's a group of people that share an interest. Now, I can understand if you're going into a competition, you want to win, you want to be the best, and that's why I don't enter competitions. You'll probably never see one of my models on a table at a convention, because two reasons: one, they're just not that good, and two, I don't like that. I personally, just for me, I want to keep it fun. I don't, because the minute I decide, okay, I think I did one right, I'm gonna, and I don't win, oh man, I'm never gonna build another model. Bah! You know, and I just want to keep it happy and fun. Well, guys, let's see what we got. We got 22 minutes left. So, you guys have any other things you would like to chat about, or?
I think this is amazing. The knowledge that these people have is just incredibly deep. You could name a toy from 60 years ago, and three of them would come up and say what it was and where who made it.
It is very good that way. Well, think about this, okay? Right now, if my thing is right, we have 144 people watching, okay? And since I'm watching on the iPad, that's where I read the comment section. That means that I'm 60. I imagine the average person on this channel is in their 50s or 60 probably. So let's just be generous and say the average age is 50. Ken, that's 740 years worth of experience and knowledge gained through lifetimes. And they're, get our number up to 200. We'll have a right millennium. Oh my God, that would make us millennials. But the one thing I could never, John's bringing up the Crusader 101. That's that gigantic car that he's got. He's got a couple of them. He's rehabilitated I don't know if you ever finished that last one. But they're these just gigantic cars, and they're really cool. I got all kinds of working gizmos on them, and they were expensive, but they put them up top shelf at a grocery store back when grocery stores where you bought that stuff, or department store. And of course, every kid on earth saw it, started screaming for it. And John managed to collect a couple of them, and he's done some videos on them. Guys, go out to Fast Sports Scale Car Garage and look at his videos. I watch his stuff regularly anyway. Another good one he did was, if you're interested in slot cars, one of my particular favorites was John was talking about, he managed to get a really nice monogram slot car track that hadn't been broken or anything. I don't know what time machine. I'm suspicious that John's got a time machine in his house. He went back and bought a new one. But and if you do that, could you pick me up a few of the original Aurora kits on the something really rare and unusual, like the little Comet civilian airplanes. If 64 the year, big plastic. Those little.
I just wanted to say that don't forget to hit the like button so that the algorithm will know that we all like Max.
I didn't think about that. The algorithm. I always like civilian airplanes because I grew up on a small airport, and there aren't really that many of them. Well, there's a lot more now than there used to be. But it used to be Aurora made their little 4 little ones, and a couple of those were old Comet kits. The Beech 18, the Apache, the Cherokee, and the Aztec. And I wanted to get an Aztec to go with that Cherokee. And that Cherokee, and I know I've bored you guys with this, that little Cherokee I did is the only model I've ever gotten in Fine Scale Modeler magazine. I bloody near fainted when I saw that. And
it's a cool model, and you decorated it like it was on the package.
Which is not the decals that came with it.
Yeah, you couldn't use the decals; they weren't there.
Yeah, but the airplane it's actually a photograph of an airplane and not of the model. And the decals on the model are they're red, and they're not even related to what's on there. In fact, the model has the wrong number of windows. I bored you guys with this story, but I'll cover it real quick. The Aurora push the project manager in Aurora that wanted to do the civilian airplanes, he was getting a lot of pushback. The company didn't think sell. They didn't want to do them. And when he finally got the molds cut, the Learjet and the Cessna 172 were so bad they couldn't use them. Those pictures you see that Andy sent me, those were actually of the patterns that had been glued together with a rubber glue and painted. They sent them to Portugal, and they said the mold jobs were so bad they couldn't even salvage the molds. So that put everything on hold. They finally got permission to do the Cherokee. So they did the Cherokees and the Aztec. Now the Cessna 310, the Beech 18, and the Apache all came from Comet. But the West Wind jet, the Jet Commander, the Aztec, and the Cherokee were all cut by Aurora. Well, what happens is Aurora sat on them for a year, after the molds were made. And finally, the project manager got the go-ahead to put them into production. Well, in that year, Piper had added the third window, right, to the Cherokees. So they tell Piper that we want to make these airplanes. Piper just sent them some literature, told them they could use it. So they simply used the photographs that were on the Piper literature. Well, of course, Piper sent them the literature for the latest aircraft. So the model has 2 windows on the side, and but the photograph in the airplane has 3 windows on the side, and a completely different paint scheme because they had changed the paint scheme. And I always loved that gold paint scheme. That's why I bought it. I was like that, and I saw Cherokees at the airport too. I actually saw a Cherokee in Canada for sale for I think it was a 180, might have been 160 horse, but anyway, it was a straight wing Cherokee, identical to the one on the box. Same gold paint scheme and everything. I almost thought of I gotta buy this. And she said, you've got a model. Well, normally you buy the airplane and they get a model made. I've got the model. I've got to go buy the airplane. Yeah, pardon the pun, but
fair.
well, pardon the pun, but like the model, that did not fly.
Oh, what a shame.
But I was trying to get the N number. See, the photograph, you can't see the N number on the airplane because I wanted to run the N number on that plane and see if it still existed.
That would be cool. How old was the picture?
Probably 65, 66. But a lot of those old mid-60s Cherokees are still out there flying every day. Hell, some of them are still giving flight instruction.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
the local airport, remember?
Uh-huh. Well, as the Apostle's pointing out, there's still not that many GA aircraft. I was actually joking that if I was going to make a model, get in the kit model business, I'd probably make civilian aircraft. There's very limited competition. Make them all the same scale so people could do the dioramas. And Cessna 172s are pretty well represented. A couple of Bonanza kits out there. Minicraft makes a few of them. Piper Super Cub, regular J3 style Piper Cub, but generally speaking, the only kit of a Navajo, which is very popular, light one I've ever seen, was some off company that made them for a short while. I saw somebody that built one. I tried to find one, couldn't. Excuse me. I don't think anybody made the 400 series Cessnas, the 421s, or the 402s. They're popular airplanes, and if they are, they're very expensive and usually little niche companies. But the only Cessna 310 is that old Comet kit that Aurora got. At the round nose Aztec, the long round nose Aztec was made by Aurora, and the Apache was made by Comet, which Aurora got. The Learjet was originally IMC. Yeah, there are a few Learjet kits out there, and but by and large, it's a fairly untapped market, and there are a few kits of some of the newer stuff. I actually saw a model. I think I saw a model kit of a Cirrus. But it wasn't that long ago they started making kits of the Embraer. But I don't know if anybody makes a kit of like a Bronarani or a 120 Embraer.
There's a 3D radio control airplane that you can print of a Cirrus and a Pantera.
Haha, Pantera. No, I'm sorry. To me, that's just one of the coolest looking cars.
Oh no! Wait a minute, I said that wrong.
Mangusta. Those things have stayed expensive too.
There's a new airplane that's just came out. It's slick, it is fast, and I can't remember that. I guess Pantera was the wrong thing to call it. Well, the only real models you can get of civilian airplanes are ones that people have made of their own airplane.
Well, you can get a custom, like a mahogany one out of the Philippines or something made. And I imagine there's 3D prints for just about everything.
Nope.
No?
Nope, it's pretty limited. They're making more, but it's a complicated process.
Yeah.
That P-38 that you gave me, there's a lot of engineering that went into that.
Well, that's an RC.
Yeah. That's what I was talking about.
Yeah.
Even making smaller ones, though, is difficult to do.
Well, you kind of expect a radio control because it's got to all be aerodynamic and work properly just like a real airplane. So you kind of expect it to be, an intense engineering project. But you know what? Models are an intense engineering project also. I mean, just kit models. After having seen what like companies, was it Zvezda had a thing online showed how they go about making their models, and it is a process. There's no easy way to do it.
Not even now today. Even though they have CNC machines, Pipistrel. There you go. That's what I was thinking of. Even though today, even though they got CNC machines, it's still a lot of work, and you still have to do a lot of touch up after it's done.
Yeah. Let's see if I can get him to hold this without dropping it.
Acme models are junk. I don't know about that.
Which models?
Depends on who makes them. I mean, if you got yourself a brand new Go Fast little toy, and there's no models out there for it, and you'd like to have one, you got to pay for it.
Yeah. Well, as much as I would love to own an airplane, and I've thought about it, but oh God, it rivals a boat for just being the expensive toy. I mean, I do love them,
but it's a toy that you can fly in.
Yeah. I think I'm pushing $20,000. I don't even know how much flying time I have. And I'm pretty sure when I retire, I'm going to take the Jimmy Doolittle philosophy. Doolittle, who's probably the aviator I respect most in the world and a personal hero. Doolittle, when he quit flying in the military, quit flying professionally, he quit flying, period. He said it was a vocation, not an avocation. And I tell you what, the more I watch like Flywire and Scott Perdue and Blanco Lirio and Dan Greider over at Probable Cause, I'm like, man, they're dropping a freaking airplane every week. Like, what are these idiots doing?
Well, that'd be like watching a car accident reports of all the stupid things that people do and going, holy cow, I'm never going to drive again.
Yeah, but there are millions of cars. You expect that to happen every day. Of course, a lot of the cases they are, well, I better not say that because they've had some boo-boos with professional pilots at the controls lately that were like, there but for the grace of God going. I'm very fortunate in this regard. I fly in an environment that is extremely tightly controlled and regulated, and I have a very strong set of do's and don'ts. I mean, in addition to my own, I'm not doing that. No, we are not flying through that. But also I have a lot of set of rules that you will not do this. And that forces us to be safe by design. So, yeah. But anywho, that's... Guys get off on their own airplanes and think the rules don't apply anymore. I'm like, you do realize these rules are in place for a reason. And,
oh yeah, well, like you said before, there's no shortage of stupidity in the world.
No, there's not. If I was to get an airplane, a real one, it'd be one of two things. If I was going to get a traveling airplane, it'd probably have two engines because I'm an airline pilot. I'm used to twin engine safety. I just like the idea that one of them coughs a motor, I got a fighting chance of staying up on the other one. Especially if I was going to do long overwater stuff. And if I
have an Aztec.
And that'd be possibly a Skymaster Aztec, a nice old man's twin.
My first flight instructor told me that Aztecs only have enough power if you cough an engine to get you to the accident site.
That's Apaches.
Oh.
And for those who don't know, the Piper Aztec, the PA-23, is both the Aztec and the Apache. It's the same airframe. What happened was the Apache was the original one. It was actually, I think, a Giuseppe Palenka design. They bought it, modified it. Put a pair of 150 horse engines on it. Turned out to be pretty anemic. It's a four-seater. They upped it to 160s, which is an improvement, and later on 180s. Well, the Apache started growing. They wanted to do more with it, so they stretched it. They put a bigger tail on it. They went up to 235s and 5 seats. Pretty decent airplane. They finally realized it kind of got a different airplane here. So they put 250s on it, called it an Aztec. They're both PA-23s. It's the slash numbers, the engine size. PA-23-150 is the one with the dinky engines. PA-23-250 is Aztec. And now they had an airplane that really had some horns to it. It could stay up on one engine. Now, if you're fully loaded, you're kind of rolling the dice in it, But then over time, they got bigger engines. The plane got stretched more, pointy nose, and it became a bit... But they're always PA-23s. They couldn't compare with a Baron on performance. The Baron run rings around it. But the Baron was also, more of a, you got to know what you're doing airplane. The Aztec was pretty docile. It had that big fat wing on it.
The Baron is kind of in a league of its own, too.
Just about. And the Baron is an airplane somebody needs to make a model of. Because there are all kinds of Barons out there and they're extremely popular. Barons, Air Commanders. The Air Commander, that's the one that Comet made that... Aurora also made, was the Air Commander.
By the way, there is no such thing as gravity. The Earth sucks.
Nah. But the thing I like about it, I flew the Skymaster. It's not very fast. It's got 6 seats, but if you have legs, it's a 4-seater. I'd yank out the middle seats, but the Skymaster's the big hairy Cessna. It's just a big Cessna with engine in front and engine in back. Air Force loved them. They use them as spotters. The Oscar Deuce, the O2. But if I was going to get a toy just to tootle around and I get something like a Cub Cruiser or something that's, if the fan does quit, you're basically flying a glider. About the most fun I've had flying an airplane was Pawnees because I was towing gliders. And when you take a 250 horsepower Pawnee with no glider behind you, man, that thing, whoo-wee, it's just a overpowered Super Cub with a low wing. And yeah, one thing though is don't if you get into flying, don't push your luck. Just fly it the way you were trained. Everything will be fine. Don't take shortcuts. There's an old saying, and it holds true, that aviation in itself is not inherently dangerous, but more so than the sea, it is terribly unforgiving of any carelessness or neglect.
Oh yeah, it don't take long to get you in trouble if you don't pay attention.
And if you're a VFR pilot, and John just pointed this out, if you're a VFR pilot and the weather starts to get a little iffy, or real quick, VFR, visual flight rules, 3 miles visibility, marginal VFR, 1 mile visibility, and instrument ratings, you got to fly on the gauges below that. Let me offer you this little piece of wisdom, and this is exactly what happened to Kennedy. You can have 3 or 4 or 5 miles visibility, but if you are out over a state forest, or the water, or the desert, and you're down to 2 or 3 miles visibility, technically you are in visual flight rules. But you have no outside references. You are, as a practical matter, on instruments. He wound up in a graveyard spiral. And it's just that simple. Now, in his defense-ish, he was going to take an instructor with him, but the guy couldn't make it. He decided to go on his own. Get theritis. More pilots have probably augured in due to get theritis than any other single thing. So, just saying. And if I do stay, and I don't know if I'm going to fly after I retire, but if I do stay in aviation as I get older, one thing I'm learning is you start leaning more on experience, because you don't get that much sharper or quicker with age. You got away with things when you were young because you had lightning fast reflexes. But one of the worst things is, and there's no getting around this, I don't care what anybody says, as we get older, our inner ear starts to harden a little bit. So we become more susceptible to things like vertigo, spatial disorientation, automatic occlusion, autokinesis, and all these other physiological factors. So you've got to play by the rules, and I got a lot of automation that I work with. I got a first officer and I pay attention to what I'm doing. But I'll tell you right now that the day I catch that crap happen to me, I'm going to walk away from the job if that was to happen. Fortunately, up to this point, the gods have been kind to me, and I'm still able to, do my job without any afflictions. But I know a couple of guys that had to turn in their wings, man. It's not a happy day for most pilots, but man, you only got to be wrong once. Well, anyway, and one thing I do think they need to put on airliners that they don't have are laser-seeking missiles, not laser-guided missiles. Laser-seeking missiles. Because the next time some idiot lights me up with one of those, and yes, it does happen, I'm like, I just want a button I can push and just have a kill bot go right after him. That is totally not true.
The P3 Orions? Did you know that? They got heat seekers?
Oh, I thought they had kill bots. I was about to get excited. Well, guys, we're coming up on 9 o'clock when that's my bed. Well, just not my bedtime, but that's
time to go eat.
That's yeah. It's my midsection is going ding dong. That growling noise you may be hearing coming from under the table is not the dog. Oh, by the way, everybody, Honey says hello, and you're all on the protected list when the cats take over. So we're going to wrap up here. Does anybody have anything else before I run?
I think I have one story I'd like you to tell.
What?
When you were in, was it Cuba, I think? There was a Russian airplane, and you went over to visit it.
Oh, okay.
Somebody
Down in
was
Cuba.
talking about
As a
what
Tupolev 2.
flying was back in the 60s.
Well, no, the 2204 was actually a pretty modern airplane. It wasn't, that one was, when I was in Cuba. No, I'm sorry. Where was I? Dominican Republic. Is in the DR. Is in Santo Domingo. And Cubana pilot, we parked right next to a Tupolev. When I say Tu as in TU, the short for Tupolev, Tu number 204. That is the Russian airline. It looks just like a 757. I wonder if I can get a look inside. So I run over to their gate, was right next to us. I asked them, and it's all contract gate agents. I said, let's go ask the captain, Captain Martinez. And he said, sure, send him down. So I come down in my little American airline uniform. Hey, Captain Max, nice to meet you. Oh, Captain Martinez, and he spoke perfect English, which I think perfect English is required for them to work at Cubana. But anyway, and he took me in the cockpit, sat me in the captain's seat, and showed me. The only thing was they didn't have the APU going. I think it was broken, so it was hot and stuffy. But it had a very modern glass cockpit and everything. And it had a little ram's horn like we have in the Embraers. But ours comes out of the floor. Theirs actually came out of the panel. And it just moved a little bit because they're both fly-by-wire. But it was a reasonably modern, respectably modern airplane. The FMS was all hard push buttons, but not surprised. I mean, but I was like, nothing wrong with this airplane that I could see. Cubana, apparently, when I was there in Havana not that long ago, I saw a couple of 204 sitting there with no engines on them. Apparently, the Cubans don't have the hard currency to keep a lot of them going. And I heard some got repopped by the Germans for
You're
Russians.
going off on a tangent.
I'm sorry. Anyway.
The crew treated the pilot.
Oh, okay, yes. They did everything but bow and salute. I mean, the pilot, the captain is God over there, which in the Latin carriers is apparently, some of them, it's not that uncommon. Asian carriers are kind of the same way. Yeah, whatever the captain's will was, was law, and I was like, would you like to take something back to your airplane? Sure. And they wrapped up, make Captain Max a gift bag, and they whipped something up for me. And I was like, yeah, well, everything has its perks. But they were super friendly, and they were very happy to have an American on board. And I asked them if they'd like to come over and visit my plane, and they told me they couldn't. And then they had to go. But then one of the Dominicans told me that they don't actually let the Cuban crews off the planes. And I don't know if that's a Cuban thing or a Dominican thing, but they weren't allowed to leave the airplane. I was like,
That's a shame.
I'd be afraid they won't come back. I don't know.
They would have seen how the crew treats you.
I'm not getting into that one. Anyway, that's where we're at. One little quick story. You guys already know this. We don't have to wear the masks on the airplane anymore. I was actually deadheading in the back, and the lady sitting next to me had like a form-fitted mask, like a jet pilot's mask. And when I was getting down, my little loose company mask is hanging on. Would you mind adjusting that? Yes, ma'am. Because I'm in uniform, got my badge showing. So sit down halfway through the flight. Folks, the judge just ruled we don't have to wear the mask. You can take them off, effective immediately. I took mine off, and man, those things went, a few of them went flying in the air. And I had the first word, I can breathe. And let's just say the person next to me had a not enthused look. And I don't think this had, my humble opinion, I don't think this had anything to do with, the vid. I think it had to do with the power. Oh no, I can't make them wear them. That's me. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Don't want to judge. Judge. Well, guys, I think it's about time to wrap it up. I'll leave the. Oh, by the way, the music's left over from last week. Somebody had said apparently they didn't care for my taste in music, and they were just like, "Can't you just do some elevator music like the lady from Ipanema?" I'm like, okay, and that's why that's on there. So I will let everybody go. Guys, take care of yourselves. As always, model on.